Are the women who are either at the head of this or have been somehow slipped into this worldview, are they happy with the men that this has created? Or exactly, you know the answer, they just have contempt for them. So that's one example. Um, but society still requires men. And when there are fewer and fewer men, or when men have fewer and fewer purposes or meanings to be men, all of those benefits that men bring go away. I have easy examples, you know them, a military. For all of our talk about, male-female equality in the military, I suspect a lot of women don't want to be in the fields of Afghanistan. And that's one easy thing. But here's another more hidden element is, this whole superstructure that holds together law and order in America, cops, these are the people on the forefront of guarding civilization, enforcing the rule of law. That takes manliness. Even in a day-to-day way of enforcing your property rights, that takes manliness. When men disappear, you depend more and more on the state. And that state is not interested in your property, in your freedom of mind, in your family. It's interested in more and more power. And that is the kind of inertial force of liberal democracies, is these larger and larger states. I mean, you see this every day. This is, not a mystery. The fewer men, the harsher, the more comprehensive that rule becomes.
And so if you take the long view approach of the Marxist, the cultural Marxist, Frankfurt School, all these ideas that have now percolated up through the universities, you diminish the men to make space for the state as a strategy.
Yes.
Yeah, this is not a accidental side effect. This is the intention. The first thought is how do we make room for the state? Then the idea was we have to go after men and masculinity and male power. And now this has been institutionalized, and it has captured not only the military and the universe, but like into sociology, psychology, biology, physics, math, disabilities, ideas around disabilities. It is everywhere, and there's really no escaping it. And if you challenge it, you're the radical today. And this is getting onto the theme that we're really gonna get into here. But the conservatives have to start taking the approach that they are the radicals, because we are in an occupied territory with a foreign force and foreign ideology that has captured all of our institutions, that are intrinsically at odds with nature, biology, our understanding of our place in the world. And we have to start to do something, Arthur. We have to start to do something, because this passivity, this, I don't know what it is, this polite conservatism, this focus on corporations being corrupted. I want to attribute some of the passivity to corruption, but I also just I believe that there's something in the ideas, in the philosophy, that did not allow for an active defense. We in the Liminal Order, we talk a lot about personal sovereignty and about controlling the narratives that get implanted into your mind. And we say that it's not enough to be actively, you have to actively defend your mind space. You have to occupy your mind space. You have to be deliberate with the narratives that you run in your mind in order to occupy and defend the space that people are trying to take over. And we didn't do that collectively as folks on the right who believe in the founding principles. We didn't actively defend, it seems. Or if we did it in a very terrible, poor way, because we failed. Like, it's over, it's done. And they've taken it over. And because of technology, we actually have a very short window here until this takeover may be permanent. And so how do we transition towards a more proactive right side thinking? I don't know if conservative is even the right word. It's a new right of some kind, the anti-woke of some kind, but I refuse to be defined by what I'm against. I am defined by what I am for. So how do we inject a new sense of proactive defense, of repelling these ideas, of counteracting them, and building anew where we find ourselves in occupied territory?
Right. Well, this is the question that's on everybody's mind, and I'm not sure I have a full answer, but I have thoughts. If we just look at this question that we've been discussing, male-female relations, my view is that, and this is your view too, that there are a lot of deeply unhappy women. And, I am very happily married. And I have seen in my life what it means to have a genuinely happy family life. And there are a lot of decent women who somehow understand that they've been bamboozled, who somehow understand that the goods of life have been denied them based on certain illusions that they have been living out. And that is a ripe audience. We need to understand how to speak to them, to speak to their hopes, but to also articulate their circumstances to them. And there are the problem is not the analysis. The problem is finding the courageous people to speak to them. And this message, I think, even though I'm not for one perspective must speak to the same perspective, but I do think that it's the role of women to speak to other women on this. And I have long advocated for something like a Rush Limbaugh only for women, that brings them on the air and lets them speak about their experiences, about how deceived they've been, about how unhappy they are, about how they've been robbed of certain goods of life. They all feel it. I mean, we are working at least within the confines of nature, such that they recognize these things. So that's one element of it. And I think actually there's a lot of hope there because of the mass unhappiness. That's number one. But number two, I think that very broadly, look, conservatism has been purposeless. It doesn't know what it's been fighting for. It thought that it was fighting for the GDP. It thought that it was fighting for corporations, but those were just errors. So one is reviving, well, the idea of what exactly are we trying to preserve? And the answer is, my view, that the American way of life, which means Republican self-government, the capacity to rule oneself, the moral character required to rule oneself, but in addition, a structure in the nation that allows you to do that. So that's very broad, but here's a more direct answer to what I think you want to talk about. Nothing can be done until there is a rollback of the institutions that the left has captured. That, I think, is priority number one. Easier said than done, sure, but we haven't tried it. And I'll give you some examples. Number one is, why is it that there are all of these state universities that teach our children to despise themselves, despise their families, despise their nation? And those same parents are funding those state universities. They are being defrauded, and the state legislatures are letting this go on. Some universities receive a great deal of their budgets from the states. That is goal number one. Defund them. Let them go bankrupt. Another, in terms of the institutions that the left has captured, we used to have a regime of libel laws in this country up until 1964. And this country was a free country. The press operated normally, but the press was moderated by these laws. It was moderated insofar as it could not just calumny people. It could not just spread malicious rumors that destroy either public officials' capacity to actually govern the nation or destroy individuals' lives and keep people in terror of the press, such that in the end, the press actually ends up ruling the country rather than our elected rulers. So libel law is a very possible thing to do, and Justice Thomas has signaled that he's interested in that. We have to start thinking in the way that you said, Jack. We are counter-revolutionaries, and we have to start identifying these targets and, as a next step, seeing what we can do in order to moderate their power. The left will not be moderated through conversations, through arguments. That's not how this works. It has become far too fanatical. Only some kind of parity of power can achieve that. And the first step in creating more parity of power is moderating their institutions through laws. Second, I think that our strategy has to be largely on the level of the states. That's where our base is. That's where citizens actually have powers because they are not dependent on an administrative state like Trump was, which spent 4 years sabotaging him and tying his hands. I mean, the fact that that was tolerated it's unreal. We're not a free country. But on the level of the state legislatures, state governors must think of themselves as creating as much autonomy from woke world as possible. That is the broad goal. And it means the educational system, the defunding of the universities. It also means reinvigorating certain habits of character through the laws. Like, for example, I would like it that in the state of Florida, every boy in high school, and girl for that matter, must learn to shoot. Every boy must wrestle as a requirement of PE. There are things, as I said, once you have the framework, once you see where our strengths are, where we can actually do something to preserve our cause and to preserve political liberty in America, you start seeing that there are actually all of these things that we've never really tried.
Again, sir, very rich comments with so many things to address. In my conversation with Michael Anton, he and I had a good conversation about a boarding school that we need right now is one that teaches great books in the morning, trades in the afternoon, and violence in the evening. And by that I mean like boxing or wrestling. And I pitched that on one of my shows, and man, I got like 25 emails from moms from all across the country saying, "Oh, well, if you're going to start the school, let me know. We'll sign up." And given actually, I spent 10 years, you may not know this, I spent 10 years running charter schools in DC. I'm a bona fide charter school turnaround expert. With my education experience, that may be something that is on the table in the future. Something that James Lindsay says recently is that we can't hope to stop the institutions that have been taken over, but we can, what he says, throw sand in the gears.